4 years ago, I made the life-changing decision to quit alcohol, and it took me 3 years to actually quit. Hi, my name's Danelle, and on this channel we explore all kinds of ways to get older better. Have you considered cutting back on alcohol or even quitting alcohol, but you're not really sure the best path forward? Have you tried to quit alcohol and you haven't been able to? That was the position I was in several years ago. I decided that I was going to cut back. Then the next day I wasn't able to cut back. And that was a pretty disturbing realization to me. So I started researching. I started reading books. I started with This Naked Mind, and I joined a Facebook group of like-minded people who also were trying to cut back or quit. It was so much tougher than I thought it would be. I had achieved other very difficult goals. I had become a firefighter. I had learned to drive tankers and fire trucks. I had become an advanced level EMT. I had trained 3 different dogs to become certified search and rescue dogs. So I thought all I had to do was set a goal and I'd be able to achieve it. But with alcohol, I found it was harder to quit a habit than to start a new habit. I had also, in the earlier years, been able to start other good habits like eating healthier, and I had started a running habit many years earlier. Also, as an artist, I have had 2 solo shows at our local gallery. I have entered artworks in several different other shows, invitationals. So I had accomplished so many goals, but quitting alcohol was really, really much harder. It was just, I was using it, I started realizing that I was using it as a crutch, as a way to escape, sort of. I realized I was using alcohol to just quiet my brain from all of the things that I was accomplishing and all of the ways I was pushing myself during the day. I was very busy and very accomplished during the day, but then in the evenings I wanted to have my glass of wine. But what happened is that one glass of wine would feel nice. It would make me feel mellow. So then I would have another glass of wine and then another glass of wine. Pretty soon I found myself buying an entire box of wine so that I could have more glasses of wine without watching the level in the bottle go down. Sometimes I would have vodka mixed with some sugar-free tonic waters because I was being health conscious, so I didn't want to have a sugary mixer. Over the years, I was having more and more, and I was having it every single day. It was badly affecting my life in some ways, in that I have been an emergency responder for almost 30 years with my search and rescue dogs. So I was on call 24/7 for that. And then I joined the fire department almost 10 years ago. And that was even more intense, especially as an EMT. I would start drinking at about 4 or 5 in the evening. So from the hours of about 6 p.m. to about 10 p.m., I was always worried that there was going to be a call and I wouldn't be able to respond because I had had more than one drink. Even with one drink, I didn't want to respond to emergencies. I don't want to be there with somebody whose life is possibly on the line. Having to make really important decisions, obviously, in the ambulance, or maybe helping with a car wreck, maybe extricating someone from that, having to do a lot of complex tasks, maybe driving a 40,000-pound tanker to a fire call, and having to back that down a long, narrow road with people nearby. I needed to be at my best. So I lived for several years in fear of having a call that I was really needed at, but that I would be too impaired to go. I even made some very dubious decisions over the years that I'm not proud of, where I had had a couple glasses of wine, but I knew I was really needed on a fire call, and I would respond anyway, thinking, well, I feel okay. looking back now, that was not okay. Even one drink is too many if you're responding to emergencies. So with my lifestyle and my love of being helpful in emergencies, it was not compatible with drinking. But when I told myself I was going to stop, I couldn't. And so I researched. I thought getting more information would help. Through my research, I found out that alcohol is extremely damaging and risky for many of your body systems. It's obviously, everyone knows that it's hard on your liver, but it also increases your risk of cancer. It increases your risk of dementia. It even, of course, increases your risks of injuring yourself, just falling down the stairs or banging your head on something. So it was just not a good thing all the way around, and I knew that. I had all the knowledge in the world, but it wasn't helping me. I do recommend, though, doing all that research, reading the books. I put a link down in the description box to a video that I found to be very excellent. It's a really in-depth overview by Andrew Huberman about how alcohol affects all of the systems in your body. I watched all of that. I still didn't quit. I was trying to find any way that I could to be motivated. Why is alcohol so difficult to quit? Alcohol is so embedded into our society. If you go to a restaurant, the first thing that the waiter asks you is, what would you like to drink? And they tell you about their special drinks on the menu. The people you're with are likely ordering a glass of wine or an alcoholic drink. If you watch a movie, I was watching just romantic Christmas movies this year, and pretty much every single one had the characters each had a frosty glass of Chardonnay that they were sipping on. Almost any show or movie you watch, someone's going to be drinking for whatever reason. They're going to be drinking for celebration. They're going to be drinking because they're on a date. They're going to be drinking because they're stressed out. You see the detective on any kind of crime show, they're stressed out and they're knocking back a couple of whiskeys. So it's very pervasive. You go out with your own friends, you're not even watching a movie. What are they doing? They're ordering drinks. We went to lunch yesterday and a couple of people were ordering beer. And so it's just considered part of our normal society. So, and you can also be considered kind of the weirdo if you're the one who's not drinking. So it's a double-edged sword. You're considered maybe broken if you're saying, I'm done drinking, I don't want to drink anymore. But you're considered weird if you don't join in and drink with people. So it's really tough. It's just everywhere you go. Any kind of big arts events we have here in town, there's always a no-host bar, and everybody's having a drink. How did I finally start to make an inroad on quitting alcohol? The first success that I had was when I asked my friends. I have two friends who I very much cherish, and I really respect their opinions, and they really don't drink. Maybe once a year they'll have a glass of wine. And although I was very embarrassed, I like to be seen as a person who accomplishes goals and who has control over my life, as, that's not unusual, most of us do. So I really didn't want people to know that I was having a hard time with alcohol. It was very embarrassing. But I admitted to them one day when we were out having coffee that I was having some problems, and would they please be my accountability buddies. So both of them set alarms on their phone at a time that I asked them to. I knew that about 4 p.m. was my witching hour, and I asked them to set an alarm on their phones to remind them to send me a message saying, Danelle, don't drink, and we're thinking about you, and we love you. So they started doing that, and that was really effective, even though it was just a message and they weren't here to, make sure that I did the right thing and didn't drink. But that was really effective, and I was able to stop drinking due to that for 9 months. And I was really proud of myself, and I was just forgetting about alcohol. I was sleeping better. I was remembering movies that I watched better. Everything was getting better. I was saving money. I was just feeling really proud of myself. But then my birthday came, and I thought, I'll just have one glass of wine. And here comes the temptation again. We want to use alcohol for celebration. We want to use it to cheer ourselves up. It's kind of some of the things we do with unhealthy food. We will have a donut as a reward. We're using food, we're using alcohol as emotional band-aids, kind of. So I had a glass of wine on my birthday, and I was really proud of myself. I just had one glass of wine. But then a few days later, I thought, oh, it's a sunny day outside. Sunny, warm days were often a trigger for me. And I'm sitting on the deck, and I thought just a cold glass of Chardonnay wouldn't be no big deal. As you can imagine, those little special moments got more frequent and more frequent, and probably within about 3 weeks, I was back to daily drinking. It had just gotten its claws in on me again. So that was extremely frustrating. I tried to stop, and I was back to the same cycle. I'd have a couple drinks in the evening. In the morning, I'd wake up, I'd be angry at myself, and it started all over again. And speaking of being angry at myself, that was one technique that did not work. No matter how much I yelled at myself, told myself that I was just a loser every morning, that never helped. That did not help me lose. That did not help me quit. Telling yourself how bad you are or how weak you are, that's just not helpful. So don't try that. And you probably have if you're also finding it hard to let go of alcohol. Other things that did not work for me to quit alcohol was cutting back. I tried to make rules about how many drinks I could have each day. I tried making rules about how big the drinks would be. I tried to make rules which days I could drink. Those never worked for me because it would just suck me back in. Because one thing that we don't talk about often enough is that alcohol is an addictive substance. It's how it sneaks up on us. It's why so many people in their 40s, 50s, 60s are trying to quit, because we probably started having our first drinks as teenagers or in our 20s, and it's just gradually sneaks up on you, and you don't realize that it is sneaking up on you, and it's got its claws in you. Not everybody experiences that. I have friends who can have a drink maybe 3 times a year when they go to a special event or on their birthday. But some of us, it sneaks up on us and we do not realize it. It was a huge shock to me when I realized I couldn't quit. It really was a blow to my self-esteem. The research that I did, the videos that I watched, and the books that I read, I put links to my favorites in the description box. Those were really helpful to me. It really gave me a strong foundation of knowledge, which really was helpful. But that's not what helped me quit. I kept drinking even though I knew it was increasing my risk of cancer. I kept drinking even though I knew it was damaging my organs. So that's not what finally got me to quit. For me, and everyone is likely different, the social pressure of my friends did help. But when I started taking a drink here and there again, I went back and asked them, could you guys remind me again? I feel really embarrassed, but it has sneaked up on me again. So they started messaging me again. But the second time around, it was not effective. It made me stop and think, but then I would think, well, I'll just have one, or they're not here to see me. It's so embarrassing to admit, but the second time around it did not work. So I just kept drinking a little, and I was right back to where I started. Then finally, social pressure was the final key for me. Not with my friends reminding me, but when I went to a Christmas party, the Christmas party was with people that I really looked up to and that I really wanted to respect me. And before I left for that party, my friend made me 2 drinks that were much more sugary and sweet than I was used to. So to me, they tasted like they had practically no alcohol. To my surprise, those 2 drinks were very, very strong, and I drove the 5 minutes to the party, and by the time I got there, I realized I was really, really, really buzzed. but not, I did not realize that before I poured my little glass of wine. Everybody at the party brought their little bottle of wine to share. So I was sitting there sipping on my glass of wine, which would be my normal thing, before I realized those two prior drinks were hitting me. I remember very little of that party, which is just terrible. They held a little auction. I remember bidding on some items. The next morning I did not remember how much I bid on the item. I didn't really remember what I bid on. When I woke up the next morning, I vaguely remembered like falling off my chair at one point. And the worst thing that happened that was completely against all of my extreme rules about responsibility. I'm a very strong proponent of being responsible, being safe all of my years in the emergency, as an emergency responder, you can imagine. I drove home from that party. Yes, it was only 5 minutes away from my house, but I was in no shape to drive. And that, when I woke up the next morning, I felt absolutely mortified. I could have hurt somebody. I could have caused a wreck. It was a terrible, terrible thing to wake up to realizing. And that was my turning point. Now, if I hadn't done all of that research and I hadn't done all of the preparation and the reading, maybe that wouldn't have had such an impact on me. But because I had had that foundation, I had already quit for a little while. That was my final straw. And ever since that day, it has not been hard for me in the least to resist alcohol. It's like it opened my eyes to the final awful door of how alcohol was absolutely unnecessary and was also harming me and potentially harming those around me. I have 3 adult kids. Drinking alcohol that was making me fall asleep during movies we were watching together, making me just kind of tired and stupid in the evenings. That was not a good example for my kids. Being a good mom, being a good example to my kids is absolutely paramount to me. So drinking alcohol and not being able to let go of it and drinking too much every single day, it was violating many, many things that I hold extremely important. And so it felt so good to let go of that. This last year and 1 month that I have had 0 alcohol, I have found so many benefits. My sleep is better, which is critical when I'm a postmenopausal woman. My sleep is already really not very good. My sleep improved. I don't have a high-paying job. I'm not retired with a big pension. And now I am saving, I estimated about $100 a month, maybe $120 a month. That also is critical. And I have my pride back. I feel so much more proud of myself. I have more energy. I have the 3 border collies. I take them for walks every morning at about 7 a.m. and then I take them for a shorter walk in the evening. I have way more energy for those, being between tracking calories and having a more wholesome diet and not snacking and having all of those empty alcohol calories and then having the stupid snacks because I was buzzed. That helped me finally lose some of that 20 pounds that have been lingering that I really wanted to lose. And I had a partial knee replacement a few years ago, and losing that 20 pounds is great for the knees. I didn't need that extra weight on my knees. Quitting drinking also took away that one extra risk factor for dementia that I was worried about. I do not want any extra risk factors for dementia. None of us do. So I would recommend trying it. Just let it go. We do not need it. One helpful thing that I told myself that went through my head when I was trying to quit, and when I did quit, was just the simple sentence: alcohol is not entertainment, it's just a beverage. So I would tell myself that alcohol is not entertainment, it's just a beverage, when I'd be preparing to maybe go out for dinner with my friends. And I'd be feeling a little sorry for myself because I knew I wasn't going to have a glass of wine or a special fancy drink at the restaurant. And I just realized when I would get to the restaurant and then I would get my drink, and my drink was a cup of coffee or some iced tea. Yes, this is just a beverage. This is exactly what it would be if there was alcohol in here. What's the difference? It has alcohol or it doesn't have alcohol in it. It's not entertaining to just have some alcohol in there. It's the exact same action. I'm sipping something. And I'm smarter, I'm more interesting, and I remember everything better, and I can drive home safely with no worries if I don't have the alcohol in the beverage at the restaurant. So, if that helps, tell yourself alcohol is not entertainment, it's just a beverage. One thing that can be hard about quitting alcohol is that it really depends on the reason that you're drinking it. If you, like me, are drinking alcohol just because you're trying to slow down your brain and escape for a little bit, when it comes around that time when you normally have a drink, at first you're going to feel a little bit at odds. What am I going to do? What am I going to think about? My brain is not slowing down. What should I do? So at first I really didn't know how to entertain myself. So what I did do is I found a drink I could sip on that wasn't something I would drink during the day, so it seemed a little bit special. I got some tart cherry juice, which is kind of a nice substitute for red wine. I also really liked sugar-free tonic water. It had that bite that I liked in alcoholic drinks, and I would put some lime in it, made it seem kind of fancy. I drank a lot of diet tonic water for a while. It felt like I was preparing something special in the evening. And also, of course, maybe talking to a therapist, maybe being in a support group, whether online or an in-person support group, can kind of help with those uncomfortable feelings, and just talking about it. A therapist might be able to help you figure out why are you drinking. And alcohol is just addictive. Sometimes there's not a great reason we keep drinking. It's simply an addictive substance, so we keep drinking it. So sometimes there's not a complicated reason that we keep drinking it. So, and sometimes we've convinced ourselves too that it's fun or it's useful. I know that shy people think that drinking some alcohol when they go to a social gathering will help them to relax and talk to people. But like any other skill or something that we're struggling with, if we practice going there with no alcohol and then just facing it and facing our fears, you'll learn that you will relax after the first few minutes, maybe the first 10 minutes. And the more you do it, like any other skill, you'll get better at it, and it'll feel more comfortable, and you won't need this toxic, poisonous substance to help you do it. We can just get better at it without drinking something that is damaging our bodies and causing problems with our sleep and on our brain and risking diseases like cancer. Here's some basic tips that I found from various books, websites, other kinds of sources that might help you. Everybody has different resources that help them to deal with quitting drinking. One thing can be set clear goals. Some people will do dry January, so setting a goal of 30 days can be really good. For some people, setting a goal of 1 day. Just do today. You can handle today. You can sit through those cravings just for 1 day. And then the next day, set that 1 day as a goal. You can set 1 hour as a goal. If a day is too much, maybe you're waking up in the morning and drinking just because you have a hangover from the night before. Maybe you set a goal of not drinking until after noon. Start where you are, and then set goals that can incrementally edge you toward your goal. Now, going cold turkey also can be really helpful. That was helpful for me, just letting it go. We don't need alcohol at all. It's not like a diet goal where you've got to eat every day. With alcohol, you don't need it. So another thing that people often do is just get all the alcohol out of the house. Just get the triggers away. Avoid people who are triggers. Avoid activities that are triggers. You can If you have a favorite way to drive home that always goes past your favorite liquor store or grocery store where you buy it, drive a different way home. That wasn't really an option for me because we have one highway to get home and the stores were right there. So everyone has a different way that they can set themselves up for success. But getting it out of the house is a really good first step for sure. And build a support system. I mentioned this before. I had my friends who are very supportive. They're still very supportive. They still tell me how proud they are of me that I was able to accomplish sobriety. And you can get an online support group. The This Naked Mind is the name of one of the books that I've put a link to down below, and there is a Facebook support group for them that I was part of for quite a while. You can find an in-person support group. Of course, there's the classic Alcoholics Anonymous. I did not want to do that when I was in this small town. I was too afraid there'd be people there that knew me, and as a reporter for our local newspaper, too many people know who I am, so I didn't want to do that. So online support groups were good for me. You can get therapists online. You can, of course, get a therapist in person. So get some sort of support. Get some accountability. If you're like me and being embarrassed socially was a big deal, set it up so you know if you fail, there's going to be someone there saying, hey, knock it off. This is not what you want. You told me you wanted to quit because of this, this, and this. You need to know. And they will remind you. They will support you. They'll cheer you on. Get someone who's strict. Don't get someone who will just be like, oh, it's okay. It's okay that you did that. Get someone that you know is going to be really hard on you if you start failing or you sound like you're hedging. Get someone that'll really, really tell you like it is. Cravings will just go away really quickly. But if you can just learn to sit with the discomfort, you can use breathing techniques, you can use meditation, you could go make yourself a little fancy fake drink. There's some really good, if beer is what you really like, the Athletic Brewing makes a really good non-alcoholic beer. There's non-alcoholic wines, but I've never tasted one that tasted good to me. They always seem too sweet. But the diet tonic water, that was my go-to. I could get up, go make myself that, and that would keep me busy and make me feel like I was having something special. One thing that you hear a lot, and I've read a lot, is to reward yourself for achieving milestones. So try that if you think that's a great idea. If you think it'd be fun, maybe put some things in your online shopping cart that you've always wanted, and that if you hit that 30-day goal, get to your cart and buy it for yourself, or you're gonna go give to the spa and give yourself a fancy day out. That never worked for me personally because deep in my head I knew I could reward myself anytime I wanted to, so that wasn't really a big deal. Maybe you could set it up with a friend or someone you live with and say, hey, at 30 days, could you be in charge of this reward for me? Maybe that would be a way to do it. If you have been able to conquer your addiction to alcohol, if you've been able to cut down on your drinking, if you have any tips, if you've had things that have worked for you, I'd love to hear the challenges that you've had and how you overcame them. I'd love to hear your questions. This is a discussion that I think more and more people are having nowadays. I think that sobriety is becoming more cool. I think it's becoming more common. I think it's becoming a bigger discussion in our society, and I think that is a very, very excellent thing. If you're interested in hearing more about my experiences with different diets, with health in general, check out this video over here. And thank you so much for stopping and listening. I'd love to hear from you.